Sure.
Okay. Well, welcome. And sorry you can see behind the curtain here as we deal with technical difficulties. I'm showing at least 10 PLN participants. This is Mark, and we've all talked before. And Wendy Wilson, River Network, will be one of the presenters today, and she needs no introduction. Our topic is fundraising for local climate projects. As you know, this is one of the topics you requested. And we also have Don Elder, who is the director of the Major Donor Program for River Network, and the past president of River Network for a long period of time, who is back, who has rejoined River Network. I don't know, and I'm going to let Don add additional introduction if he wants. And Don is our first presenter. Wendy will be presenting later, and we're going to try to have quite a bit of participation by you. So you feel free to put in chats when you have questions, and we'll get to them. But then also, if you're on the audio, it will really help us to help you to participate. So Don, you're up.
Well, thanks, Mark. I've been looking forward to this a lot. I've got a lot of good old friends on this call today, and a few people I haven't met yet. So I'm looking forward to getting to know you all over the next year. I hope to meet most of you at the rally. There are a lot of different dimensions to water-related climate work and climate-related water work. There's so many that it's hard to know where to start, or when we build our programs and try to communicate about them and sell them. Certainly, water security is one dimension of this. As this map shows, there's hardly a place in the country that can feel highly secure about its water in the coming decades. Hello?
We have some people that might want to be on mute for, remember to do the *6 thing if you have background information that we don't all need.
Water security is one thing that's on the mind of many of us and many of the communities that we serve. There are many, many other ways to look at it, though, of course. There were floods, droughts, hurricanes, other larger, more energetic storms. I personally think tornadoes are in that mix. Lower, hotter low flows with higher pollutant concentrations in the summer, radically altered runoff patterns and resulting changes in stream morphology, higher energy demands and irrigation demands. The list goes on and on. So today we're not here to try to build out that list. We're all pretty well familiar with it. What we're here today is to try to figure out the best ways to communicate about them with the public and with our supporters, and then to fundraise more effectively around them and the work that we're doing on these topics. We want to hear from you today about ways that you're describing this and fundraising this in your particular location. And we want to figure out ways that we can work together better. For River Network, one of the ways we decided to focus early on was on the connection between saving energy and saving water. And there were a good many reasons we decided to zero in on this. We felt that it was a subject that needed more attention nationally and locally, and where we could make a significant difference. We started working on this 5 or 6 years ago, and Wendy's report on the carbon footprint of water is one of the latest big things that River Network has been able to contribute in this area. Another reason we chose this was that, frankly, we could talk about it, and River Network partners could talk about it without ever mentioning the words climate change, which are dirty words in a lot of our communities. So it seemed like an effective way to make a real difference in this area, but give people the choice of framing it in terms of climate or never mentioning climate if that makes more sense. And so that's one of our opening assumptions here is that each of us is going to find a different way to frame this in our own communities and to our own funders. And that's one of the things we want to hear you talk about a good bit today. And then, as I said, we want to really zero in on how to raise more money for this work. And with that, I'd like to pass the baton here to Wendy for the next couple of slides.
Great. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
I know you're all on mute, so probably. Well, if you can't hear me, please put it in the chat column or something so I can go over to a different phone if need be. But I wanted to talk about diversity of funding first. These 8 categories, member recruitment through government grants, really, there's nothing secret to them. Those are the only ones we have, except for 9, which would be other and fee-for-service work that may or may not be actually fundraising or gift-oriented. But if you're looking for contributions, most of the watershed groups that we are aware of are using maybe 3 to 6 of these 8 funding sources. So that's what I think is diversity in funding sources. And if you're not using 3 to 6 of these, then you're not going to have a long-term ability to fundraise for some of the long-term work I think we need to do in this program. Some of the groups may not have members, but you may have other types of donors, but having that kind of renewal income coming in from a donor base year after year is what builds sustainability. And the other type of diversity that we want to really encourage is not just the diversity of types of income, but always getting more actual people out there fundraising from your organization. If you're the only face of the organization, then you're not going to necessarily be able to appeal to as wide an audience. So there's the donors you have, the types of ways you ask them to give, and also the face of the organization that can be diversified. And I think especially with our climate work that it gives us a real opportunity to diversify the face of our organizations. The other really important function of planning your fundraising around this project is how flexible do you need the money to be? How predictable do you want it to be? The way that you intend to use it. If you're going to just lead a public process that leads to you don't know what, you can't guarantee a government project grantor that you're going to do exactly what's in that government project. So the more free-form and the more collaborative we need to be, the higher up on the right upper corner we have to be with our funding sources. So how does that work for people? I asked you guys to put out a few brain cells this morning to think about these questions about how climate-related fundraising is working in your organization and how you're talking about climate and the water-related impacts of climate change with your people. And I'm not sure that Jill made it on the call today, but I know Beth was going to open up the conversation a little bit and talk about what's happened at Cahaba. They've been doing this over several years, and I think have had an amazing different mishmash of, is that the right word, funding sources? Opportunistic funding, how about that? Beth, you want to share with us a little bit about that?
Yeah, and Wendy, just remind me at this stage in the PowerPoint which questions you best want me to address. Because you just mentioned the diversity, and kind of how do you want me to frame this?
Well, just how over time it has changed for you, or been, what you've learned about talking about climate with your constituents and how it impacts your bottom line.
Okay. this has become a major program element for us that is included and packaged into many of our regular grant proposals. And we talk about it to our members, we talk about it to our donors, to our foundations, and to our corporate supporters. And the only source that we haven't tapped on that list is government grants. And every time I look at an EPA grant, I go, holy shit, it's so hard to apply for, and what you have to commit to do is, at any rate, it's almost like you need more resources to deliver what they're expecting than the amount of resources they make available for an organization our size. At any rate, I'd love to figure out how to tap those sources. But generally, what we found, we first started the water energy work when Don came down and gave a presentation at a big joint meeting we were having, where it had grown out of a sort of a joint faith science approach to collaboration that was bringing a lot of different stakeholders around the table. And Don came and spoke at one of our first meetings, and he was doing his prophet thing at that time of going around the country. And thank you for that, Don. You really were a prophet, getting us to think about the water energy connection. And light bulbs went off above our heads all over the room. And so this, for us, has always been embedded with this concept of collaborative work that is engaging faith leaders, environmental leaders, people from our water and power utilities, people involved in green development and building, people involved in industry, and some government folks too. So through that combination, we've done a lot of listening to these different stakeholders, which has helped us frame the message, and our focus really is around water and energy efficiency and the connection between them. And that we have found to be a very strong fundraising message for people in, members, business, and foundations. The focus of our programs is around our region needs to grow sustainably. We need to conserve our water resources in order to achieve that, and that as we become more efficient in the use of our water resources, we also are saving money on our power, water, and sewer bills. We're having all sorts of other operational efficiencies. So our main focus is making the business case, and that has translated extremely well into our funding proposals, and also the fact that we're working with partners in the power company, in the major water utilities, and business and industry has been a really powerful draw. Our foundations sort of look upon our work with great relief. It's like, finally, people are talking to each other. We're so thrilled that you're doing this and that you're actually working together instead of fighting. And so it's been helpful to us to, I think, strengthen our foundation funding as we start to move out of the recession, our local foundation funding. We also found it to be a successful hit with the Royal Bank of Canada's international grant program last year. We had tried, as part of other organizations' proposals, for 4 years in a row. And year 4, we went on our own with our local partners, the Interfaith Environmental Initiative, and the focus was our low-impact development education work, our youth education work, and our water efficiency education work. And we did mention climate resilience and things of that nature in passing in the proposal, but really we focused on water sustainability and the importance to the growth of the economy in the Southeast in a way that is economically sustainable as well as financially, as well as environmentally sustainable. And we got that grant, and it was a big competition. So it, they were looking for a very, very business-savvy kind of proposal, and it worked. Anything else you want me to address, Wendy?
Well, yeah. So how predictable is it? Is it hand to mouth still, or?
Absolutely hand to mouth. I mean, the opportunities for us right now, we need we need another full-time staff person to really make progress. If I had a full-time staff person focusing on these educational and collaborative work efforts around low-impact development and water efficiency, we could make tremendous progress. But it's like, you know, Randy and I have to fit that in with all our other program work, and we don't have a devoted program person to this, and so, you know, it really is hand-to-mouth. I mean, you know, it's helped. I think it's given us an edge in some very hotly competitive arenas here in fundraising, like our community foundation has been a huge funder of environmental groups in our metro area. They went through strategic planning and really narrowed their focus. They only accepted about 1 out of 4 proposals this year, and they did accept ours and gave us a 2-year grant. And the focus really was more on the low-impact development. How do we replenish our water supplies? How do we grow in water sustainable ways? We couldn't get them really. They don't grok yet how important the water energy work is. But we'll be able to fold our water efficiency messaging and education into our low-impact development outreach education with the development community and local governments. It's all going to be a package deal, really. But the whole concept of sustainable growth in this economy has been an effective message. But yes, we're hand-to-mouth, and we need to find some additional major funding sources to be able to really make progress.
So what are the next steps for you?
Well, we've got, you know, for us, we've really tapped local sources to the extent that we can in terms of foundations. We just saw, you know, we've had one major national funder leave the Southeast, the Mott Foundation. We've just seen another major national, international funder leave the Southeast. So we're seeing the potential larger pots of money go away. So it's crucially, you know, it's critically important for us to be trying to see where are there other national sources or federal grant sources that can become committed to water and energy sustainability work, particularly the water side, and see the Southeast as enough of a priority to actually send some money down here, which there just isn't much money that's from outside the Southeast that comes here now. So that's really important, is to look for national partnerships and for help finding those kind of sources. And I would love to see some sort of partnership efforts where we might have several groups working together and sharing something, some sort of project and grant. And then just we continue to work really hard on our local funding. We've worked very hard to get more profile to this work by giving annual awards. So at our annual meeting this coming up just in a couple of weeks, we're giving awards for successful water energy projects. We're gonna be able to award our power company for a water efficiency retrofit of their headquarters, and our water company for reworking their pumping schedule so that they're saving energy and money. So it's, you know, power company saving water, water company saving energy, and it's going to be a great way to get our message across. So we use the awards we give to tell our story of our work too, and our collaborative partners, and we get media attention, and that just helps us to build our membership and donor base. We're planning on having a small donor event, well, 2 actually, one on just the collaborative process, and the second on this water energy work and the presentation we've developed and the partners that we have in that. We call them Headwaters Talks. It's our board has asked for these small events, evening. They're like programs, but it's for the board so they can learn in depth about topics, but then they invite the membership, but particularly invite major donors and foundation representatives and corporate representatives. And we've had some success with that. We have about 40 to 50 people come to each of those, and it's a good way to tell our story and continue to build support for our local funding. And in general, we're working really hard on different kinds of events, trying to build that as a membership outreach effort.
So that's like did you say a breakfast event or a dinner? What kind of event is that again?
It's right after work, basically. We do it where it's easily accessible from downtown, and we just invite people to stop by after work, and they get wine and snacks, enough to hold them, and then we do a presentation that's about 40-45 minutes plus time for conversation, so about an hour total, and make it it's a sort of a come and meet the CRS board and staff, network, with us and with our supporters, and then learn really important community issues for water along with the board of the Cahaba River Society is the way that, we've framed that. Mm-hmm. And we used to do monthly programs, and they just didn't get us anywhere. People got less. It would be the same handful of people each time. It was a lot of staff effort for not much return. So we've brought back programs, but we market them quite differently. And they're seen as, instead of, oh gosh, another Cahaba River Society program, they're seen as a benefit for members and donors and supporters to come spend time with us and learn something important along with the board.
This is Mark. Wendy, should we open this up to questions from participants now for Beth?
Yeah. Any other questions for Beth? Beth, I wonder how many individual donors do you have now for Cahaba River Society?
I don't know if I could give you a number of donors, and I don't have the budget in front of me. I mean, we generally run around 2,000 members, somewhere in that vicinity, and we split our budget up into what we call sustainable funding sources and one-time funding sources. So things that are grants are on that one-time side, and the sustainable side is membership, events, appeals, corporate memberships that are good, solid relationships, things of that nature, fee-for-service. And we work really hard to grow the sustainable side, and consistently the sustainable non-grant side of our budget is typically 2/3 to 3/4 of our total annual revenues. But our card tag is in there too, so that really helps.
Your what?
We have a license plate program in Alabama.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, so we get revenues from that. That's been a huge help, even though that's the economy situation is also reducing those revenues somewhat for the first time ever.
So great. Any other questions for Beth?
Yeah, this is Gwen Griffiths, Beth. I love hearing about what you're doing.
Hey, Gwen.
Hey, I'm curious about when you're building your business case approach, how far away do you stay from the carbon question and greenhouse gases and climate and all that? How much do you incorporate that at all, or if at all?
Well, I'll tell you, the PowerPoint that we're taking around now and showing to a lot of people, it completely makes the business case from the beginning of the PowerPoint until the last minute. And then in the last minute it says, also, there are all these wonderful environmental benefits for the community as well. And we talk about clean water, healthy, wildlife, recreation. We talk about all that. In that PowerPoint, we don't talk about climate change. And that's, one of the reasons the power company sometimes can come along and help us give the PowerPoint. We just, in the Interfaith Environmental Initiative, we've made the decision early on. The work we do within it is all collaborative, and we find what we can agree on, and we work to advance that. And then the greater trust that we build in those personal relationships we develop means that the tougher issues we can address in other groups and other venues outside of the Interfaith Environmental Initiative, and because we now have better communication and relationships of trust. Now, it's going to be interesting. That's been the work of the Water Working Group, and just this year we formed the Energy Efficiency Working Group. And so that is, I think, going to start to get to the more direct and difficult questions around water stress and climate. And we, in December, had a pretty interesting meeting where the environmental leaders hosted a meeting of the Energy Efficiency Working Group, and we worked together to present the message we wanted them to have. And that was a great meeting. We had, gosh, I don't know, 10 or more Alabama Power executives at that meeting, and it was very cordial and I think really advanced our conversation. So we are starting to talk about some tougher stuff, but in terms of in the broader community, it's really not a part of our message. We'll mention it, but it's not a key part of the message.
Thanks a lot. That's good to know.
So I have a question I'm trying to post on chat, but apparently I'm not being clear. Beth, can other people see your PowerPoint? Where can we, is it something that's accessible to share with others?
It's going to be online. I don't think Eleanor's gotten the final version posted online. I know they've been working on the website, and so it's the Interfaith Environmental Initiative of Alabama website, but I don't think the resources are very good there yet from the Water Working Group. So what we're developing is the PowerPoint itself, and the PowerPoint is a series of case studies of projects, on-the-ground projects, and that demonstrate that you can save water and energy. And so we've also created kind of a PDF of the case study of each of those, a little more in-depth than what's in the PowerPoint, and those are going to be online also, and we just need to get them completed and on. But yeah, I'll provide a link. Keep reminding me, and I'll keep reminding Eleanor. I really want to be able to provide a link to that to everyone.
Great. Other questions for Beth? Jill sent an email that she was in a snowstorm and that she would try to get online, but she didn't think she would be able to have phone access. Imagine that. Montana has been hit by what the rest of the Northwest got. So I guess we'll go on, Mark, and just kind of open it up to others.
Yes. Well, are you going to move into the general questions? There we are. Sorry. There's some general questions posted now that we wanted to discuss with you, which are shown on your screen right now. Are you raising money through your climate-related work? How? If not, why not? What obstacles do you see? And I'm open to chats on this or people just talking together. And how can the PLN work together to address them? And I'll add the other side of the obstacles is what opportunities do you see now and in the future? So who wants to go, who's willing to go first here? Talk about your climate-related work and what potential you're seeing. I see Jane is typing. Elizabeth, would you be willing to open us up to your conversations there?
Sure, Mark, that's fine. About this, I don't know that it's helping us raise more money. We're able to at least secure funding to cover costs for the 2 climate-related projects. In Water Saves Energy project. The projects that we are doing right now, the new funders as well as partners and funders that we've had. But the probably more interesting are just the new funds for the Safe Water, Saves Energy program that private foundation, the water efficiency in residences angle. Then Mott Foundation is contributing along with a number of small. It's hard to say what the outlook is for our climate work, but we do have some limiting factors here in that, you know, we know from having conversations with some of the larger foundations that they feel, some of those contacts feel like Michigan's poised pretty well with the future climate. So they're feeling like they don't value in putting resources into projects here in Michigan as they do in other parts of the country. So we're going to have to work to change those perceptions. There is that feeling of lack of urgency.
Because of the abundance of water, you think, or?
Yeah, and just that it's when you look at the scenarios that are out there from the global climate or circulation models, and then it's a mixed bag, but there's none of the indicators are particularly worrisome when compared to other parts of the country where there's going to be more water shortage. So when a funder is looking at across the country at different, ours might not be as competitive because problems, but yeah, I mean, there's always flip sides. The other part of this is that there's nobody around here. Like when I was looking for examples for similar communities.
And Elizabeth, how are you using your climate work with your individual donors, and how's that working?
Not a whole lot. You know, some of the individuals may be new to us, and they have a family foundation. But as far as our other donors, a whole lot yet.
Okay.
And we really are framing, you know, the Save Water, Saves Energy. Clearly, we're talking about the water energy. But then the other work that we just started in December, focusing on adaptation and resilient communities, and we're working on, you know, the messaging.
This is one area, I'm noticing a lot of movement within the water utility. The larger water utilities are getting hip to what they're up against. After Nashville got washed away and, you know, looking at the sea level rise issues, a number of the larger water utilities are, I think, getting ahead of their communities just because they're practical, pragmatic engineers who don't like to have to build things in floodways that are just obviously going to be washed away again. I don't know of how that emphasis might create opportunities for our local groups, but I think in Southeast Michigan we have an example where we have at least a fair number of fairly with-it leaders in the water infrastructure departments of many of the local municipalities. And I just wonder, how partnering with utilities will open up new opportunities for us in the future.
Comments on that? Elizabeth or others?
I think, this is Sandy, partnering with utilities in this region is extremely difficult because we're having proposals for, we got a new nuclear facility with Detroit Edison coming in. We've got huge battles with the utilities on a number of fronts. And here in the region where we're at, First Energy is one of the nation's worst utilities in terms of doing anything on energy efficiency, renewables, or taking a leadership role. So while that role may play well in other areas where the utilities are more proactive, it is, I don't see ever building a relationship with them here. It just seems like it would never happen.
I agree. The energy utilities are the last to come around, and the water utilities hopefully will be one of the earlier adopters. I'm in Ann Arbor. They have a unique stormwater management funding program, which very few other places have the ability to just levy fees for stormwater management activities. And I can't even imagine how many other communities might have that. I think it would be a pretty small number. But that's an innovative funding technique that we hope more and more of the stormwater management agencies can explore, as well as some of the water utilities, which are either owned by private companies or by municipalities.
Yeah, this is Beth. I think the whole issue of a stormwater fee of some sort is so critical. And when our stormwater utility was created down here, that's a multi-city and county metro utility, they just put a fee of $5 per residence per year and $15 per commercial property per year. And everybody went up in arms, tried to take them down. It passed. Eventually everybody goes, okay, yeah, I can live with that. But, I mean, that's just peanuts. And when Mobile tried last year to pass a stormwater fee, there was a revolt, and it was called a rain tax. You're going to tax our rain? And so it went down.
Wow, that's message control.
Yeah.
And the flip of that is even on regular water intakes in Detroit, there's huge problems at their facilities, and they're on the verge of bankruptcy in their whole operations, and they have a 42% unemployment rate, and we're trying to get them to address the CSO problem. And the people there come back with me, well, Sandy, they're taking our children away from their mothers because they can't afford to pay for their water bills. So in urban areas, there's just a whole different, mentality as to what goes on. I mean, they don't even want their bills raised to, correct CSO problems, and alone get to stormwater. I mean, it's just, and some of these are just major, major problems for the waters. And then you put climate change and higher temperatures and the impacts on a shallow lake, and it's a very precarious situation to be found in.
Yeah, I mean, down here in the Birmingham area, what we're trying to do is look at where are there costs that are going to hit people in the future, and how can we make the case that better investment in water efficiency and low-impact development will lower those future public costs. So where, I feel like there's a lot of potential in the whole area of flood management because we've got terrific flooding problems here. They're going to get worse, and the approach, the FEMA typical flood mitigation approaches are extremely expensive, and yet there's all this federal matching money to do it. It just seems if we could find a way to free up some of those FEMA approaches to allow flood mitigation through low-impact development, stormwater capture reuse on a smaller scale throughout a community, and that those federal funds could be used in those ways, then we can make the case to our local governments, you'll spend less money if you do it this way, and you'll be replenishing your groundwater supply. And similarly with us, our water board is already planning the next big water system expansion, a $380 million capital project for new water supply. So we're trying to make the case, as Seattle has done, if we can be more efficient and we can grow and meet our economic and population needs with the water we have for as long as possible, it puts off the day when you have to spend more money in your water bill to pay for this massive infrastructure project. So that's kind of how we try to frame that. The first one, we aren't getting any traction because people just don't yet see how, these smaller scale, low impact development approaches can effectively address flooding. But the second approach, we're trying to delay the day that rate increase hits your water bill to pay for that big project. That one gets traction.
I'm going to ask us or ask Jane to interject, because she gave us a comment around her climate work that's sounds positive. So how is that working, and what messages are you using for your climate work, Jane, that's effective?
Well, we do a wide variety of things, but where we really make a difference is sort of on two fronts. One, we're looking at culverts and trying to make it so that towns can upgrade their culverts, especially after a disaster. When FEMA comes in and says, no, you can't upgrade, we're trying to make it so that they can upgrade. And people think that's a really logical, good thing to be doing, and it has more impact than a tiny little organization like ours, more than they would have thought we would have had. So we're gaining new supporters and supporters who are giving us more money because of our effectiveness on that front. And we've also Massachusetts is the last state in the nation to upgrade its X-year storm calculations, and we're the organization that made that happen. They are now starting working on it, and they wouldn't have without us. And I think people see that we're way out, as far away from the capital of the state as you can get, and yet it was us that made this statewide thing happen, and it gives us a lot more credibility and a lot more money.
Okay. And are you linking this directly to climate?
Yes.
Or how are you conveying the issue?
In our area, I think everybody has seen the recent disasters where we've had both, maybe not tornadoes, but wind shear that acted like tornadoes. Actually, we have had tornadoes as well as these really intense storms and a hurricane coming through. So everybody is aware of the damage that's happening, and we just point blank say, hey, that's climate change. It's happening. It's going to get worse. Here's what we're doing about it. And we don't make any bones about it. We just tie it directly to climate change and that we're taking action. When we do get climate denier questions, my response is usually, so what is it that we're doing that you think we shouldn't be doing, even if you don't think it's related to climate change? Everything we're asking you to do makes sense. It's better for the environment. What's your objection?
Thank you. It's very good. It's good to hear it's working.
Well, the bad thing is we've had disasters that are part of what makes it work.
Yes. Yes. Wendy, in terms of time, should we be moving on? I mean, we're in pretty good shape,
no,
I think.
I think we have, we have another 10 minutes if we want on this item. Isn't that right, Don?
Yes.
I wrote down. Yeah.
Okay. Well, would others like to ask questions or chime in with their efforts, either on how they're working or what you're foreseeing as the obstacles?
can move on if we'd like.
Well, this is Gwen. I'll just make a comment. We are working with I'm with the Compact, Government of Compact in Tennessee and Kentucky, but we're working with a national group to do climate work, and our best success, we've had some success with major foundations that are very focused on climate. So they are out there. There's not a lot of them, but Kresge and others are out there, then climate is a real focus for them. So we've had some luck with grants in that area for a larger program. We've been less successful in generating funding for work close to home. So we've had to take a lot of the same approach, going after the traditional issues and not putting the climate label on it. We even have had climate deniers on our board at time to time. Right now we don't have any, which is nice, but we have had that, and I've had to sort of, make the case for what we're doing at practically every board meeting for a while, but fortunately that's a little better. But on the national scale, the major foundations have been helpful. On the very small scale, one of the small projects that we're doing as a fundraiser is we've developed something that we're calling Water for Schools, and we're installing large 300-gallon cisterns on the school property, and then using that water to irrigate their gardens, their vegetable gardens and rain gardens on school property. And around that, we're talking a lot about the water savings and the energy savings, and we're going to be calculating, trying to put a carbon savings on that as well as part of the outreach. And all of that will be incorporated into the school curriculum. So we're early in the stages of that, but we're going for corporate sponsorship of each school, and going for $2,500, $3,000 per cistern, with lots of recognition around that, and a goal of eventually, maybe 5-10 years from now, having zero runoff from all the schools in Nashville-Davidson County. So that, and we're doing it partly for mission, but a lot for the funding, the corporate funding that we can get from it.
I love the corporate sponsorship of the school. That's a great idea.
Yeah, we're excited about it. It's new, so I'll let you know how it goes, but we're excited about giving it a try. I wanted to mention to you, Elizabeth, with the climate community work that we've been doing, we have worked with 2 Great Lakes communities, and we're working with a 3rd one this year. So I can send you some links to what they're doing if you want to look at what some other Great Lakes communities have been doing.
Sure, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Does anybody have any thoughts on Beth's comment about EPA and DOE? I share your interest, Beth, in DOE and grants, EPA grants around climate change adaptation. I am not aware of any outside of the estuary program. Is anybody else aware of others?
Well, it's Rebecca who commented on that. She raised that in her comment that she's hopeful of receiving one. So Rebecca, chime in a little with respect to that. What are you referring to?
On mute.
She could be on mute. Are you on mute, Rebecca?
It doesn't look like she. Yeah, it doesn't look like she.
Well, when you can, Rebecca, chime in on that either through a chat function or because I heard your voice earlier.
It looks like she's slipped off for now.
Okay.
I wanted to just add also one other thing on the corporate funding. I think that this is really a good way to go if you have well-defined projects, LID projects, school projects, etc. As some of you may know, River Network is following the lead of the Great Lakes Alliance in trying to bring in more corporate support from Scott's Miracle-Gro on water conservation goals. Great Lakes Alliance is doing a project with them on lawns to lakes and reducing phosphorus. They're going phosphate-free now with their lawn products. And what I discovered working with that corporation, and as well as with Coca-Cola and a few others, is they love to be able to put a plaque on something. They love a shovel ceremony that has kids in it, and gardens. Nobody's against gardens. Rain gardens, edible gardens, school gardens. I mean, that seems to be where the big demand is for projects that, frankly, that they may not be as mission-driven for a national group like us, but they sure are for those of you in the field doing the local LID work. So if you have projects like that and you are looking for larger corporate sponsors and feel like maybe you're running out of prospects, we'd love to talk with you about those ideas.
And Wendy, I think there's some typing going on right now, but I see. But I'd say take it back or move us along on right now, if you will.
Okay. Well, I think that the last part of the webinar, we really wanted to talk about how we can work together and what resources River Network has. And we are not the biggest organization on earth, but we do try to be the easiest to get along with. And because of that, we have really had a great opportunity in the last couple of years to change our member benefits, our partnership benefits. And Travis was going to be checking to make sure that everybody online is a partner group with River Network. But being a partner group with River Network gets you more than it used to in terms of direct benefits, financial benefits, and fundraising opportunities. The first one, of course, everybody faces is how do you just get organized and plan for fundraising. And for years, we've had organizational development staff in the field that have helped groups with that. We have templates for fundraising plans. We have board training workshops that we can work with you to put on. And getting organized is sort of our first rule in fundraising and our first mission at River Network. But we've also added these new benefits to help you do that. And one of them I wanted to mention that you may not know about is watercraft, which is a Salesforce custom-built database donor management and volunteer management system that Baird Strong has put together working with a number of watershed groups. And River Network members get a $350 discount on the package that Baird is offering for database management. And I think that being part of the learning community around using that database and increasing your donor base is really valuable. Is anybody here on the call familiar with that or is doing that right now?
Yeah, Cahaba River Society gives a shout out for watercraft. It's really amazingly well adapted to the specific needs of watershed groups. Baird is constantly improving it to have the bells and whistles we want. And if he develops a bell and whistle for one group, all the groups in the system get that upgrade. It is a very complex system. We have 2 staff members in a team that kind of pulled their hair out getting our system migrated over with Baird's help and learning how to use it. They still get frustrated sometimes, but it does things for us that we were never able to find software that would do for us adequately in terms of reports and tracking and planning and things of that nature. And it's far less expensive than any other package of that kind of power that we looked at. So we think it's a really, really worthwhile investment.
It does require more than River Network membership to get watercraft, but most people that are leading successful programs that I've worked with have had to go to some sort of database to manage the donors, so I think it's worth it. The second item on the list is messaging help. Some of you have worked with Eric Eckel, Water Words That Work. I believe he also provides a discount to River Network partners, and he's been able to work one-on-one with boards and with agencies to help people talk about these kind of things, and I hope that we'll be working with him more. Also, we talked about Blue Legacy at the first webinar we had and the future of their potential Waterfront Heroes program to help with our messaging work. And I think there's going to be a lot of resources there that are in the consultant world or in other nonprofit organizations. And if we have some packages, some groups that want to work together on messaging around a specific part of our climate work, we can approach one of those groups and I think do something that may be on a larger scale. My hope is that we will be able to do a virtual teach-in on water and climate change over the next year at some time, and that would mean highlighting your work at the local level and tying it in with some messages and themes that we all work on together. So that's a future. It's not a plan at this point. It's still a hope, because I think we really need to do that messaging work together. So information and graphics, I think River Network has tried to be a source of information, and remember to go to Travis's, the Peer Learning Network program page on our website. There's quite a few resources there now, more so than on Basecamp. And please, if there's other things that we don't have there, let us know, and we'll try to get you the technical information that you need. Coaching, I mentioned that board training is one opportunity for River Network staff to help you. Just one-on-one sometimes, we each need that, and this peer learning network, I think, is a way to sort of broaden our coaching portfolio, but fundraising is something that doesn't happen by itself, and it's not the first thing you want to do when you get up in the morning. Sometimes we need a little encouragement. One of our new member benefits is the NOSA database for individual donor prospecting, and I will, let's see, I'm not going to show you what it looks like on the screen. Well, I'm going to let Don start talking about it, and I might show it to you on the screen. How about that?
That sounds good. I first started using NOSA a couple of years ago, and I'm by no means an expert on it. I basically just do one thing that it does, and I don't do it as often as I should, but I still think that it's a wonderfully useful tool, and we have arranged now for it to be available free to River Network partners as a partner benefit. We simply help connect the partner with NOSA, and we don't know at this point exactly how many of our partners have taken advantage of this. So I wondered if I could find out if there are any people on this call who have subscribed to NOSA yet.
This is Elizabeth. No, I don't.
Not as far as I know.
Okay, well then I think I will take a couple of minutes to describe what it is and make a little pitch for it. It is a, there's the screen, Wendy did it, hooray. It crawls annual reports of nonprofit organizations, of hundreds of thousands of nonprofit organizations around the country, probably including your own, and then organizes the information in terms of the names of donors. You can sort by donor name, by donation range, and there are all sorts of ways you can drill down. You can limit the search to the names of particular people to donor organizations in a particular state. Because of the nature of the data, there's some things you can't do. You can't exclude other people who might be named Bill and Melinda Gates, but you can see here that most of the people who popped up on this example search that we did are, in fact, the Bill and Melinda Gates that we'd all like to get some money from. And one of the main benefits of it is that you can quickly see if what the range of typical gifts for a given donor is. And just as important to me is what kinds of organizations they typically support. So what I've been trying to do, get into the habit of doing, is to every time we get a new donor of $100 or more that I don't know anything about, tab over to NOSA, type in their names, and see what I can learn. And more than half the time, I learn something important about that new member right off the bat. If I then call them up to thank them for their gift, I have some information that's very useful to me, even though they're brand new on our radar screen. So it will also search by foundations and other companies, but as I said, I've been focusing mainly on using it for people. And I did just want to emphasize again, it's a free River Network partner benefit that's available to all already. And Wendy, let's tab back to the other screen now, but let's invite questions about NOSA.
Okay.
Well, hearing none, then let me describe what you need to do to sign up. You simply need to email Dawn DeFuria, and you will see her contact information when we get back to our PowerPoint presentation here. Dawn is our partnership program coordinator, and she'll set you up.
Let me just, I'm sorry, I meant to say one other thing to Dawn before you go on to the other stuff, and that is that we just rolled out this week our latest online organizational assessment tool, and we have been tracking the fundraising success and organizational development of as many as 400 groups over the last 7 years. And I'm not saying every year all 400 groups, but we now have a new system whereby even if you aren't in your organization 2 years from now or 3 years from now, people in your organization can look back and hopefully through River Network assessment not only help you improve your success with fundraising, but also keep track of it. So I will send out that link. It's pretty brand new, and if anyone is interested in using that and engaging their organization and reviewing their fundraising strengths and weaknesses, that would help you do that.
Moving ahead to the next slide, I wanted to talk for a minute about one of our core assumptions is that we can raise more money working together than we can by working separately. Joint fundraising can often help River Network raise more money than we could alone, and vice versa. There are a lot of donors out there who are more intrigued and engaged when we talk about national programs and how they play out in a particular place. And conversely, there are a lot of donors out there that are interested in place-based work, but they want to see how it connects to national or global issues, and those are good prospects for joint cultivation and joint asks. It's easier said than done, though. It's labor-intensive, and we haven't been set up until recently to do as much of this as we would like. Probably still can't do as much as we would like, but now that I'm focusing on major donors, I'm able to work with a few partner groups this year to try to identify and cultivate and secure gifts from some new major donor prospects for us all. I'm going to go back to the last screen for a second to share the names of contacts here and describe how we're organized internally at the moment. Matt Burke is concentrating on corporations, Kevin Kosowski on foundations, and I'm concentrating on major donors. We work as a team, and there's some overlap, and Wendy works with us, and Wendy and I can be point people for any of you. If you have an idea or a question about some joint fundraising, please let Wendy or me know. So this year, we would like to work with a few of you to identify some prospects, research them. We can certainly use NOSA now and some other basic tools, figure out what good ask amounts are, work on with you on making sure that the messages that we're delivering are the right ones for your area, and work on materials for joint requests. We could meet with some prospects by telephone if you'd like, or provide some sort of a web-based presentation for one or more of your prospects. Again, this is something that we want to do only with those of you who want to try it with us and with those donors for whom it makes sense. With a little more lead time, say a few weeks or months, we could also start doing some in-depth research on key prospects. I'm looking into a couple of more sophisticated and expensive donor research tools out there to try to figure out if we can afford them, and if so, if we can make searches available on a very small fee basis, say a few dollars per donor to get a very in-depth profile, which can be very helpful, especially for the larger donor prospects. We would be, with some lead time, we can travel to your area to meet with some of your prospects. We can provide a speaker at an event or help jointly organize some fundraising events. We're very interested in doing more of this now that we're a little better staffed for it. So with those ideas to put in the hopper, I wanted to just open it up for questions and discussion and any additional ideas you might have about ways River Network can help you or that you can help each other.
Don?
Yes?
This is Lori Rink from Denver, and I just have a question about what are the criteria for a major donor as versus, say, a corporation?
When I use the term, I'm usually thinking of an individual that can be reliably counted on to give $1,000 or more a year, but every organization has a different definition of that.
Okay, thanks. That helps.
Don, this is Gwen. So if I'm understanding this correctly, this NOSA could help us identify potential major donors that is outside of our network. You know, one of the things that we do all the time is sit around and scratch our heads and try to think of who are the potential donors that nobody knows yet. And we go through, everybody goes through their list, and you know, and we've tapped everybody on the list already, and we sit around and say, well, how do we find more people that nobody knows yet? And so it sounds like this would help us do that.
I think so, and one practical way to begin would be to take the annual reports of the Nature Conservancy or some other big organizations in your area, your state chapter, and run NOSA searches on them, and you'll probably see some connections start to appear. Another little trick, particularly with people who of great wealth or power, is to use a website that I love called muckety.com. where you type in a name like Bobby Kennedy, and you see, boom, a graphic with lines connecting people and organizations showing all the boards that Bobby Kennedy is on, and all the people who are on those boards, and then you can click on any one of those people and get the same thing for that person. So it's a fun way, and I think a pretty effective way to start to investigate this, and discover some new connections. Often we'll find connections in our own circle of friends that we didn't even know about yet.
That's fantastic. That's exciting. I'm going to put that to use right away.
What did you call it? Muckety?
Muckety, muckety.com. It's a blast. Another quick and free thing to do that I often do when we get a new donor that I don't know anything about is to go to Zillow.com and just see what their house is worth. Kind of sneaky, but it's public information, and there are certainly some people who are house rich and cash poor, and there's some who are the opposite. But with a few of these simple tools on the desktop, if you get in the habit of it when you're writing thank you letters, it can help.
Zillow?
Zillow, Z-I-L-L-O-W. It's a real estate site. You just type in an address, and boom, you get the estimated current value of the home.
I was wondering, in the NOSA database, I noticed that it links to the places where the information was collected. And one thing I kind of thought where my head went when Gwen was talking about people we don't know, is that's where you find people you don't know, is places where the people you do know also go.
Right.
Did I say that right? So you could go to those links and find other people that you don't know.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Plus you can Facebook stalk them. That was a joke.
Well, I know if that worked for you.
Don, I'm going to ask a question about NOSA. How user-friendly is it in terms of learning?
It's very easy. I'm averse to tutorials. It's a bad weakness of mine. And so I haven't done any, but I've kind of figured out how to make it work anyway. I do strongly advise taking the free training and so forth, but I've not been a good boy. And even so, I can get the basic information I want out of it pretty quickly. Any other thoughts about ways we might work together to raise more money?
This is Beth. I've, and I know this is outside y'all's immediate work, but you probably have connections on this work, and that is who's working at the national level and what are the prospects for getting federal money that focuses on energy and energy efficiency to also incorporate water and water efficiency. And is there possibility for greater federal resources to come to this in the future?
I think there is. One of those, they tend to be very place-based, so I think it would be really helpful for me if I knew what groups were interested in what kinds of projects, and perhaps we could, when you see a prospect or an idea that may not be a perfect fit for your organization, maybe we can even post them with the Peer Learning Network and think through who might be more appropriate. Like, for example, the one I posted this week about the local community foundations and how this wasn't a government grant, but CERDNA has a granting source that is just to match local community foundations that are working on LID and sustainability projects. A river network is, we're 3,000 miles wide and a millimeter deep without you guys. So we can't really respond to that kind of a thing, but if I knew who had community foundation funding for their water and energy work, then I would be able to make some of these proposals more quickly. So one thought might be to sort of take an inventory, Beth, of who is working on water conservation work, and how when resources come up like DOE, who would be ready to jump on it. I did a little bit with the NOAA proposal this year. We are waiting to hear if we get that, which would be on climate science, interpreting climate science to the lay public through watershed groups. And I hope that we see more of those opportunities. So if anybody sees good options in our organization, Kevin Kosowski is in charge of our government grants programs, but if they're in my program area, I'm all over them too.
Wendy, this is Beth. We were kind of confused by that third in the post, and I'd looked at it before, and it sounded to us like they were looking for who has some position called a sustainability director that's at a local government or a community foundation or somewhere, and it just didn't compute. We didn't quite get who's eligible. I mean, for instance, we just got a community foundation grant for low impact development, educational, and collaborative work. So could we somehow fit into that? It was just hard to understand it.
It was very hard to understand, and it was all in code. And the code language has to do with the Urban Sustainability Directors Network, which I want to say there's 50 to 100 communities that do have those urban sustainability directors. I think Birmingham is one of them. I know Ann Arbor is, and Denver is, and the whole list of them is available on the website of the Urban Sustainability Directors Network. If you don't have one, and you should have one, then my conversation with CERDNA was along the lines of, well, maybe, this would be a way to get such a position in that community.
Thank you. Could you send us a link to that website? Or is it Googleable easily?
Urban, yeah, it should be, as long as you get the Urban Sustainability Directors Network.
This is Mark. This is not a network that is real. My understanding tries to be real high profile. They're trying to, my understanding, they're trying to help each other rather than do a lot of outreach. But they had their national meeting here last year, and they do exist. I wanted to draw our conversation a little bit to the last question there, because we had lots of interest in this webinar, and I think there's a long way to go for a lot of us in this area, is how to tie climate change into our work. So I'd ask for any comments now on where should we go next on this topic, and I think we'll be sure to be asking about this in the next peer group meetings, is what's the next steps here for us to support you in your future learning and progress on this. So any comments now? Then I'll ask you to think about how, what your next steps are in this. If you're ready for this, because this is a, as you know, a fundamental piece of our work is in the fundraising arena, and I look at it as using the messaging and climate savvy things that we learned in the first two webinars and tie it in here, and then tying it into our work. As we've seen today, that some of us have been doing for some time, and we'd encourage the others to look at how you can take those steps.
And
Wendy?
I can always take on more tasks, but I'm going to keep my mouth shut. If people are interested in the national teach-in idea and trying to coordinate press releases or outreach work around water and climate impacts, I hope to have further discussions on that, and please let me know if you want to be on that list.
And please let me know if this is Don, and let me know if you're interested in doing some collaborative individual fundraising.
And I'll equate that contact with Don. It's similar to a fundraising ask, but if you want support from River Network, River Network is trying to, with the addition of Don, increase their activity in this area, and so Don's looking forward to working with some of you. So I'll encourage that.
What should the questions be for the peer learning group this week in terms of follow-up, Mark? Have we thought about that at all?
Well, I haven't until right now. When I was looking at that last question there, and it's how should we move forward on this topic? Because I think there's still some things that we might be able to help, but I'm not sure. I think there's many of our groups who are just starting to think about or haven't yet done much in this area, but are starting to think about how to move forward. And we'd like to support that. But how, the question for the Peer Learning Network is how can we do that? Does that make sense, Wendy?
Well, yeah, I guess we aren't the only resource on earth. I would also, point out that we've offered a bunch of suggestions here, and if you guys know of others that you want to share in terms of resources to other members of the group, please put them on Basecamp or send them out by email to folks. The only way I find out what's going on in this country is because you guys and other people like you email me things, and this is a great vehicle for passing on resources.
And Wendy, I'll add one other item is this could be, there's some of these topics on Basecamp that we want to move forward on. This could be an additional one. Not that I want to add more of those, but this could be a topic of its own.